Yeah, so he does a bunch of stuff, pre-sales, post-sales, execution of our projects. And he's involved on cloud projects, scopes like cloud migration, infrastructure, big data analytics, and machine learning. So Stephane is a person that in Aura is very known for being super engaged with this community. Not only Aura, I think he Andrew as well, right? Mm-hmm. You are pretty famous guys. Probably one of you have seen him before. Yeah. It's familiar faces, right? Yeah. He's also former SQL Server data platform MVP, where he was working before at Microsoft. He is also doing several database platforms in programming languages like SQL, Bash, R, Python, JavaScript. This is all about Stephane, and he's currently also part of our GTG, Cloud Aura. So we are also working together on the GTG Cloud Aura. Thank you, Stephane, for being here. I'm willing to see your presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So today is about data integration with Cloud Data Fusion. Anybody heard of Cloud Data Fusion? Yeah? One? Two? Okay. Cool. Get a crowd. Cool. Well, that's the purpose here today. Is where I'm going to walk through on some of the offerings on the GCP platform. So without further ado, I'm just going to put this slide just very quickly. I know Carlos has mentioned a little bit about myself, but yes, Google Cloud Solution Architect at Pitchin, and recently named Google Cloud Platform GDE, so I'm very proud of that. I hope to serve well the community and help adopt the GCP platform and answer any of the questions that you may have. Also past experience very quickly, I used to work for Microsoft before I joined Pitchin. So I was a cloud solution architect there at Microsoft, so I know the Azure platform very well also. That's a bonus and kudos. So without any further ado, usually you can stop me at any time if you have any questions. It's still prevalent. We have less than 30 minutes, so we'll kind of make that quick. So data is everywhere. That's a bold statement, true? Everybody knows that. But regardless if your data is sitting on-prem database, relational store, JSON files, IoT devices, we need to get that information somewhere so we can make sense out of it, true? To get insights. And that's not an easy task. Anybody doing ETL types of jobs or process at work or whatever, moving and shaping data, cleansing, deduping, a lot of work goes into that, true? And to prepare the data for the organization, and people are going to need to use it and make sense out of it. So why do we want to do that? Because we want to learn from it, true? The data is the new oil. I think you've heard that before, true? So the more you understand the data within your organization, the more you can make sense, you can be better, you can gain a competitive edge against your customers, or not your customers, but your competitors, true? And that's key and important. As Bjorn mentioned earlier, and Carlos, a lot of that data today finds its way into machine learning algorithms or in business intelligence applications, true? If you want to write or give user stories around visualization and telling story, that's what helps organization move on to the next steps. So here comes Data Fusion, which is a fully managed cloud-native enterprise data integration platform. For really is meant to build data pipelines and transformations. So for those of you who actually raised your hand who've done some ETL type of work or transformation works, you must have worked with Informatica, SQL Server Integration Services, Data Stage. These are all these tools that help organization and people move beyond just acquiring data and making sense out of it. So here's what we did, what Google did, putting together an offering called Cloud Data Fusion. This is all started with an open source software that is still existing and that Google acquired in May, I think it was 2018. CDAP, anybody heard about CDAP? Cask.io, which is a company that Google bought and made their offering, which is still an open source offering, available as a fully managed service within the GCP platform. I'm going to do a little bit of talking today, but most of the end of the presentation will be actual visual demos
about to create it very quickly and what the interfaces looks like. So in organizations today, when you're moving data or capturing data or building these types of applications, a lot of effort needs to go in and to understand the programmatic skills and languages to be able to build these pipelines. What this tool, what it enables you, is a drag and drop interface. There's no coding, and that's the fun part, true? It's all you put together all your pipelines and you build your transformations, and I'll show you some of the connectors that are readily available. But it helps the learning curve for the people that don't necessarily have all the programming skills either in Java or other languages. So like I mentioned, CDAP is a full open source framework to build these data applications, and it's been around for quite a while. It says here in dev for 7 years, but actually in 4.5 in production. So there's a lot of community involvement within CDAP, and all these are actually leveraged and pulled back within the managed service offering within Cloud Data Fusion. So what are the key challenges that we meet today as we put these solutions together? It's really about where do we find time consuming to put these all together. And necessarily when you're using other types of technologies, which you can use on GCP platform or other cloud agnostic vendor platforms, is the rinse and repeat. It's not always possible to do that and to port either your ETL or pipeline process to other steps within your organization when you need to pull in data. The skills gap that I mentioned, not everybody knows to program or code. So you need to give them ease of APIs or interfaces to be able to pull that information and put that together. And what I like lately about our customers is a lot of people are not necessarily ready to jump on the actual cloud bandwagon. So they're a little bit hesitant, so they need to go to a baby steps approach to start doing some on-prem, and then slowly but surely go into the cloud and adoption. Well, the beauty about CDAP and Cloud Data Fusion is that whatever you can start on-prem, because it's open source, it can easily be migrated to Cloud Data Fusion, because it's the same underlying engine. So whatever you would do on-prem, and I highly recommend for those of you that don't necessarily have a GCP account or platform, CDAP you can actually install locally on your DevBox and environment and play with it. It's the same interface. Once you build those, guess what? If you want more compute power and you really to scale up your data, well, you can use the power of the cloud to do that with Cloud Data Fusion. And what I mentioned about the hybrid approach is like a lot of people are starting fresh, new on the cloud, and they want to go and pick and choose some certain workloads that they have on-prem. They want to move them to the cloud, so that will be a great approach to do that, to use CDAP. Well, why was CDAP put together and as a managed offering on the data platform? It was really to target customers, if you want to say. It's about developers, data scientists, and business analysts, true? We want to give them all the tools that they need to be able to cleanse, dedupe, modify, transform data easily with this point-and-click interface or the GUI. So you use Cloud Fusion to visually build your integration, your pipeline. The beauty about that is it enables you to also debug your application. And it's rich in lineage in capturing that information for you. So a lot of other tools that's been around for like several years, I won't name names, but are lacking some of these features that are available within Cloud Data Fusion and CDAP. It's all about that lineage and recording that metadata, which is key when you want to debug these types of applications or embed them into your own other types of applications. And when you're ready, let's say you've started slowly or actually started deploying on-prem with CDAP, as I mentioned earlier, with the cloud GCP, you can scale up really large your actual workload and monitor them very consistently. So a couple of use cases that are relevant for Data Fusion, and these are all mapped to IT initiatives. So if you really want to, you're in the BI space, you really want to migrate or start porting a data warehousing application. Let's say you're running Oracle footprint on-prem, you want to actually start thinking of using BigQuery as your backend storage for insights or big data. You can actually move your data with tools like using ETL processes within CDAP. If you're doing a data migration in your a legacy retirement of a NetEase application or a Teradata application, Data Fusion would be the actual tool. Any types of data consolidation. A little bit of master data management is not fully baked in within Cloud Data Fusion, but in the future, as one thing I didn't point out, Cloud Data Fusion is currently a beta offering service within GCP. So Not all the bells and whistles are actually baked in for now, but it's in progress, and there's a lot of community efforts and people that are using the platform that are giving feedback to Google and GCP to make it readily available. I don't have a timeline, but something within the next quarter or something, it should probably be GA for everyone, true? So what types of benefits do you get from that? And I'll show you a little bit of the UI and what it does. So it's really about integrates any type of data, true? If you're connecting on-prem data, it could be Postgres, MySQL, Oracle, name it, SQL Server. We have all the connectors. When we say we, it's community driven, true? Because CDAP is an open source offering that is available within the GCP platform. There's a lot of tooling and actual plugins that are readily available for you. Just a point and click, and I'll show you that in a couple of minutes in the demo. It increases your productivity because once you build these pipelines, you can actually copy these pipelines into a new pipeline and not restart from scratch, but maybe change a little bit of configurations and move on to other different types of pipeline or transformation you may want to do. It reduces the complexity, as I mentioned earlier, because you're not actually coding. It's a drag and drop interface, and I'll show you that in a couple of minutes. And it really increases the flexibility of what you need to do. As I mentioned earlier, you've got a rich graphical interface. There's more currently right now than 100 plugins, connectors, and transform actions that are readily available within the canvas when you start playing with it. It's a code-free visual transform, so no coding. One thing you may know, though, it has a full rich set of SDK. So if you really want to build it programmatically, you can using Java. There's an SDK. And usually that's what a lot of customers do when they're using CDAP. They're building these types of analytical platform, and they're using Java to drive CDAP. It has more than 1,000 transform and data quality. I'll show you that, a couple of them. The beauty that I really like is that it enables you to test and debug your pipelines. How cool is that? On other tools, you actually need to build, deploy, and run it until you know it fails. You get a connection string error, or your table is not the one the actual column attribute that you're looking for is not the right one. So you're always trying to scramble and find the exact error to fix it. I don't know if you run into that, but it's a common. So pre-built pipelines, there's a couple of them that come with CDAP, open source, and a couple of them available within the Cloud Data Fusion offering, and a full rich developer SDK, as I mentioned earlier. Integration, what I like, as I mentioned earlier, it tightly integrates with metadata. So there's a lot of capturing of information on every run of your pipeline and transformation. All that information is recorded for you to actually access afterward. What data passed through, where did it connect, where does it come from? If you're doing a search, and I'll show a little bit later on, so I can search on a specific field and will tell me on which data set it belongs to. Which connection or pipeline is this data set or a field attribute that I'm looking for is part of a pipeline. So there's a lot of data lineage that is recorded when you run these pipelines and transformations. So it gives you the ability to, internally within your organization, to discover. So a lot of clients that I help and work with is about that data culture and governance with it internally is, where's that data? Where do I find it? Oh, it's in this server on this domain or whatever, true? How about giving a tool to customers to be able to discover? Type in a query, name of the table, name of the server, and it will tell you and point you where exactly it is. So currently, there is that feature is enabled within a Cloud Data Fusion, but I don't know if you've heard about Google's data catalog. So it's a new service and features available. So in the near future, there'll be some tight integration with another service offering, which is called Google Data Catalog with Cloud Data Fusion, true? It's all about that discovery mechanism about what types of data sets do I have in BigQuery. So Bjorn showed you earlier, BigQuery. Imagine an organization, and I can attest to that, and Carlos, where they have millions, I'm not joking, or close to data sets, tables, columns, attributes. How do you, it's good when the IT and the developers built that, but how do you give them the power to the users for creating insights, stories, dashboards, visualization? How do they go to find that information? So tools like Data Catalog, and especially Cloud Data Fusion, helps them navigate. Search integrated entities by keyword, schema, name and type. And there's also data set level and field level lineage. So if you want to know where a field source is coming from and where it's going as a destination, your source could be an Oracle table, which you're pulling data from an on-prem Oracle, and that end result column attribute is probably stored either in Google Cloud Spanner or Cloud SQL or even BigQuery. God knows, true? So you can find that lineage of where that field of information is being transformed and where is it landing into, sure? And I like this picture. This picture is really a visualization of how all the tools and services that are cloud native are actually available within GCP all interact with each other. But I wanted to point out that Cloud Data Fusion is really at the centerpiece of about integration, true? On any type of data store, regardless of what it is. So from ingestion, from cleansing, transformation, and sending off to source or sync destination that you want, true? So it's really data ingestion and integration piece. We've talked about machine learning, so also anything that has to go through cloud, AI, or machine learning algorithms. What we showed you earlier is about, yeah, the data is ready, but it went through a transformation. Somebody pulled out that information from where, true? From devices, IoT, from the field, or somewhere, too. So a lot of times that data needs to be given a little bit of what I call TLC, some tender loving care, to be able to be ready to make sense out of it, true? So, all right, let's go to some demos. Any questions so far? No? Cool, maybe later. So let me jump right in. Let me just put that a little bit bigger. Let's go to my console. So for those of you that are not familiar or haven't gone through the GCP console yet, so you should be able to find Data Fusion. The first thing that you need to do is enable the APIs. So you give rights to enable APIs, it will give you access to Cloud Data Fusion. Yeah. Can you see what? Oh, it's, let me just put it a little bit bigger. A little bit better? I already created an instance, which is a basic instance, but what you need to know is that when you use Cloud Data Fusion, you have two choices. Either a basic edition, which is usually recommended for a dev environment, true? Kicking the can or proving out your pipeline, your transformation. Once you're ready to actually go to production, let's say, I would highly recommend that you go enterprise, true? It's a little bit more costly, but once you went through all the pain of gathering and preparing all your pipelines, it's better to use the enterprise features because some features are only available in enterprise and not in basic. AKA, one important, which I don't have enabled here today, is about scheduling some of these pipelines. A lot of the pipelines you do, they need to be scheduled. You don't want to sit in front of the computer and start clicking run and start whatever. So a lot of them need to be scheduled. So that's one of the key features that are available only into enterprise. So let me start this one. I'll just show you. It's already started. So let's go quickly back. So it's easy as creating. I'll just show you creating an instance, which I already created. Just you give it an instance name. It generates an instance ID, you usually give them a description, and then you pick in which zone that you want to deploy it to. And the instance that I created, actually created in Montreal, or Northeast territory. So again, basic edition and enterprise edition. And you just create. One thing to keep in mind, it usually takes 12 to 15 minutes to create a machine, true? I know it's a little bit long. I'm sure it's something we're working on to make it a little bit faster. But what you need to understand, there's a lot of plumbing going behind the scenes, true? So once it is deployed, you don't need to do anything furthermore, true? Unless you need to configure a little bit more compute workloads for your type of needs. But once it's running, it is running, true? I say 12, between 15 minutes, true? So let me just go back here very quickly. So when it is created, you go to the instance, already have the instance running. And when you start on it, you can get rid of this start the tour. You're in the control center. So that's your control point when you actually deploy Cloud Data Fusion. So let me walk through a little bit of the UI. So whoops, sorry about that. One of the first things I wanted to show you is that pipelines. I actually created two right here, two small demos, campaign pipeline and Data Fusion Quick Start. So I actually run a couple of them, but what I wanted to show you is that there's deployed and draft. When you're actually working on a specific pipeline or when you create one, you're in draft mode. Until you publish it, it will find its way here in the deploy. Deploy means it's actually been debugged and it's actually ready to run, and you can schedule or run it, true? Let me just show you here. So The first part where you're going to actually land is the canvas, is what we call the studio. That's Cloud Data Fusion. So let's walk through a couple of the interfaces here. I don't want to be in front of the computer here, but can you see well? You want me to put it a little bit bigger here? All right. So like any type of ETL tools, it's a canvas, true? So you got your sources, your transforms, your analytics, your sinks. So your sources right now, BigQuery, any types of databases, Google Cloud Storage, Excel files, FTP, Cloud Storage, you name it, true? You can connect to any type of sources. Let me just go quickly into transformations. A lot of transformations in there. So remember what I told you, there's more than 1,000 of them right now, true? Record, record duplicator, compress, CSV formatter. I can go on, true? They're all there. And when you want to do analytics, let's say you're pulling in data from different tables, a customer sales information. Let's say it's a star schema from a warehouse and you really want to flatten out the structure because you want to design that and put that in BigQuery. Hence why BigQuery, because you want to flatten out the structure, really more prevalent in BigQuery. So you're going to use a joiner, let's say, type of task, true? That will join on a specific key to records and flatten out the structure, true? Just going very quickly here, but at the end, and I'll show you one that I've deployed in a couple of them, but there's a sink. Your sink is really your target information, where you want to store that information. It could be in BigQuery again, any types of databases, and I'll show you that a couple, Google Cloud Storage, ECS, HBase, Kafka, whatever, true? One thing you need to know right now, the demos that I'm going to show you very quickly, is all batch, but there's also real time. And the real-time features are really more embedded within enterprise features than basic editions, true? So there's conditional and types of action and some error handling in the large set you can encompass. And I'll come back to the canvas a little bit. Here, I wanted to show you about some metadata. Remember? So if I just type here, let me type state, because I know one of my data sets here. So state is found in 2 data sets, true? And its name and the system property. So it tells me exactly which data set where it is, true? And it gives me the JSON representation of what that data set is. So again, very quick discoverability on specific attributes and anything. Let's go to the interesting part. Well, everything is interesting. It's about wrangling. So one of the first things, as you may want to do when you get data, is it needs to be transformed, true? Here's one that I already did, but let me just show you quickly. Anybody use Trifecta or Cloud Data Prep? I know my friend does in the back, but it's a similar tool. So Trifecta is actually an offering, a commercial offering by the company Trifecta, but Google has a partnership with Trifecta where they're offering a managed service called Cloud Data Prep. And it's really meant for more data scientists through business analysts, cleansing, transforming data, true? This kind of does the same thing, but it's more from a pipeline transformation perspective, true? So where it's going to be embedded in a pipeline, true? From source, whatever transformation cleansing that you do, and it needs to find its way in another store, true? Although the same thing can be done with Cloud Data Prep, true? Because once you create a recipe in Data Prep, it can actually deploy and be scheduled into further target information within the GCP platform. But I just want to show you quickly. So that's usually the first, I would say, interface people would go to the Wrangler to get a source of data, true? So you can connect to any type of database. Let me show you this, add connection, database, boom. I can connect to Redshift. I can connect to Postgres as a Cloud SQL offering on GCP. Hive, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, SAP HANA, Oracle, Microsoft, whatever. You just install the driver, point to on-prem, whatever where this server is running. You connect to it with your credential. I'll give you an example. I won't do it, but you give it a connection name, host name, definitely not localhost for this instance, on which port you're in, your Postgres username, connection, boom, bingo. What it will do, it will give you access, and it doesn't bring the entire data, true? So what you see in here, let me just cancel this, sorry. It pulls in a certain amount of data, true? If you're building transformation, once you deploy it, it will run on the entire data set, true? If you have 1 million records, they're not going to be all populated within your canvas, true? So very interesting from that perspective. So again, I showed you a database. I can connect an S3 bucket. If you have data, raw data files, JSON, whatever, GCS on GCP platform, or on Amazon S3, you can connect to it, true? A couple example here. So I'm connected here to my cloud storage account for this account. Some of them are familiar here, but so let's do customer. So essentially, that data, I connected from Cloud Data Fusion to my GCS bucket and GCP, and got a JSON file called customers, true? What can I do with this, true? Just show you a couple transformations. I'm gonna go body here. I'm gonna go parse, because it's a JSON. I'm just gonna do it first for first dep, and I'm gonna do again, parse, JSON, another dep, and voila. I've just parsed the actual JSON file into a columnar spreadsheet representation to be able to make sense out of it, true? Pretty cool. Drag and drop interface, no programming, true? So now if you notice, so all of my column names are body underscore, but I can change that. I can do this, whatever, I can just change it there. Or the beauty of what we do into CDAP with the Wrangler interface is called directives. So it's an internal call it language, but it's more of a transformational language. It's called directive. So I don't know if you remember what I did at first. I parsed as JSON body 1, parse as JSON body 1, and I just renamed body column to customer. Everything is recorded. Sorry for my language. If I fucked up something, guess what I can do? Go back. True? I love that. True. Sorry, my language. But that's the beauty of it. True. Everything that you do is actually recorded in there, so you can go back. So what I did is drag and drop, but you can write these directives, and I'll show you what. So imagine, we did customer. This is all the information that we need. So we want to build a pipeline out of that. So what I do here is I create pipeline. And right now, because I'm just using the basic edition, I'm going to create a batch pipeline. That brings me to the canvas, which is the studio canvas, true? So I got the information. So I pulled this file from my GCS bucket, Northwind ETL. Anybody familiar with Northwind? Northwind database? Good old days. So my storage product ID. So this is all the fields that you would need to populate if you're going to do it manually, true? So basically what I wanted to show you is that from the Wrangler, I've created a pipeline, but I could have went cloud storage like this and do this all manually, put GS dot whatever, true? But I started with the Wrangler. A lot of people like to do that, but so let me just delete this one. And then, as I mentioned earlier, remember the tags that I did parse? Let's say I want to do further transformation. I can click Wrangle here. It will bring me back there. I'll just show you this for a second, just for fun. Let's just rename this one for now. Or I can say, for editing that is null in this one, maybe just or delete this column, true? And then I'm going to go apply. What it does, these directives that I've done visually on the canvas are actually embedded now in my actual pipeline, true? So I went back to Wrangler, applied them, and said save, and they're there. Typically, it shows you the output schema, true? I would have renamed all my attributes and removed the body underscore. And essentially, I'm just really trying to show it, but technically, if you need to add some transform on that, and usually you would go, okay, I want this to go to BigQuery. Whoops. And essentially what you would do is just drag, send to BigQuery, give your project ID, your data set that you've created into BigQuery, the name of the tables that you would want, and guess what? You would click preview. Preview is the way to debug, true? Before you actually, so I'm gonna run it, it's gonna fail because I hadn't provided anything for BigQuery. So as you can see here, I click preview, it says starting, it's gonna fail, it's gonna give me an error. But I just wanna show you, 1 minute left? Oh shoot, okay, cool. So let me pass that. give me a second here. I'm going to leave this for now. Absolutely, you can do that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just quickly, here's one that I've created. It runs perfectly right now. It's succeeded several times. So it connects to GCS file, a little bit of wrangling. I join with a BigQuery data source that I already have. Let's say you have lookup information for states or anything. You're moving a data warehouse and you want to look up a code for a product, which is another table in BigQuery. You would connect another BigQuery. You would do join it and send it back as a sync to BigQuery. You would click on that and you would run quickly. I know the lineage that I showed you, on every run, it gives you the run history, how many times it ran, if it succeeded, number of records, outputs, errors and warnings, if there's any records and warnings. You can configure, pipeline configs. Don't recommend that you play with that unless you know what you're doing, but everything that I ran on this one is a map produce job. So basically what it does, it creates a data cluster on the GCP platform for you, and when it's done, finished running your job, it shuts down and removes all your data proc. So it instantiates that compute power for you. You can also run it with Spark. Not necessarily MapReduce, but you can use Spark. And then in the near future, you'll be able to run Dataflow. Anybody familiar with Dataflow in GCP? Perfect, true. So in the near future, that will be coming over, true. A lot of people will be debating, well, why this? I'm doing the Dataflow. Yeah, Dataflow, you need to know how to program, true. Java and Python and run these huge pipelines, where this is like easy transition. But anyway, so you can change the number of CPUs, memory that you need to run your pipelines, and off to the races you are.
How do you schedule a pipeline?
Very easy. Typically, because I'm running basic edition, if I was running enterprise, right here between the configure and the stop, they'll be scheduled. You click on it and you say, I want this to run nightly at 9 o'clock or several times during the day. It will give you the calendar, and you just click, you save it, that's it. Easy as 1, 2, 3. Absolutely. Okay, sorry about that. We're running out of time, but any quick questions, or I hope this was relevant for you guys, but I strongly recommend that you, like I said, start with CDAP on open source on-prem on your laptops and gradually move to CDAP. So thank you.